Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Almost everybody's here. We're missing two people, but we'll get started and hopefully they'll be joining us. This is the kickoff meeting for the Citizens Police Advisory Committee, and we're doing it both in person and virtual today. But thanks everybody for coming today. The reason we're doing this is we wanted to stay ahead of what was going on around the country, even though our police force enjoys a great relationship with the community here. We're always looking at ways to improve, not only transparency but communication. And of course, as always, our department was on board and ahead of the curve. So I would thank Chief Evie and the administration and the whole department for that. And the chief will say a few words in a moment. But for now, I just wanted to call the meeting to order and say that our chairman is not with us in person, but he's joining us virtually, and that's Wayne Keeney. Wayne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Freddie. I apologize for inconveniencing everybody with the Zoom situation, but we tested positive in my house in the last few days, so I didn't want to expose anybody.
No, we appreciate that. Thank you. Hopefully everything will be fine in the coming days. But with the chairman already in place, we have to select a vice chairman and a secretary. So do we have any nominations and thoughts or discussions on that? Anybody willing to step up?
I don't say no.
I like that. Mr. Peter Bernstein raised his hand. So for
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair. Okay. Discussion. Any other nominations? Seeing none. Any discussion? Seeing none. Okay. All those in favor of Peter Bernstein as Vice Chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't see any. Okay, and I'll turn it over to you in a second, Wayne. For secretary, do we have any nominations? Any volunteering? Okay.
It's an important position because we at least we have to have somebody keep a record of attendance and some summary in minutes.
Absolutely. And right, there's two people not here. So what I could do is I could suggest my good friend Laverne Lord to be the secretary, but we could certainly confirm that the next time, I guess. But I certainly I don't see any objections to Laverne.
That'll be fine.
Okay, great. That's good. Next up, we'd have to, we're supposed to meet quarterly. And so we just got to decide where you want to meet and what time of day. I would suggest probably town hall. It's a little easier for everybody and there's a little bit more space. But, and also they have the public safety complex, the police station, which we can use. But it's, throw that up for discussion. And Wayne, we'll lead off with you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think that a meeting in town hall would probably be easiest for everybody. As parking is easy. We're all familiar with the building, and hopefully we can do it in person as often as possible, because I think that would be most effective in that regard. I'm suggesting that probably I mean, some of you folks might be retired. I'm semi-retired, but I still work a couple of days a week. So my preference would be at 5:30 in the evening on a particular day every 3 months. Does that sound reasonable?
Great.
Anybody?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Sorry, this is Sasha Arena.
I can't hear.
Should alternate between town hall and the police department, because if we're going to be serving with the police department, I think it would be great to visit the location and get familiar with the faces and kind of build. I know parking is not ideal, but I mean, if it's only once every quarter, I think we should be alternate, definitely leave the winter months to town hall, being that it's easier to park, but at least we had our first meeting here, have our next meeting at the police complex.
Would the, Chief Heavey, would that be any inconvenience to the department if we take a conference room in your building?
No, not at all. And like I said, we could also arrange for anybody, some people haven't been over there in a while. We could give them a tour, but absolutely, just as long as we know about it, we'll schedule the large classroom. And if you're in classroom A or B, we can also make it a hybrid. So if somebody does still have to Zoom in, we can arrange that at our building as well. So Jenny, you're always welcome to come to help with that, but.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's probably a pretty good plan, Mr. Chair, maybe switching on and off there quarterly. As the 5:30 time okay for people? And when you respond, just please state your name. This way we'll for the record. But is 5:30 okay for everybody?
This is Peter Bernstein. It's a little disruptive given that my kids need to be fed at some point. So if we could do it possibly a little later, that'd be helpful. Just 7?
Is 7 okay, or is that too late? Or
7's okay with me.
With me, because I'm in the same boat with having to feed the kids, and then, just 5:30 is right dead smack in the middle of homework and meals.
This is Joel. 7 is fine with me too.
7 is fine with me too.
Everybody's in agreement that 7 will work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. 7 in police headquarters and whatever facility they set up for us there. Are
okay,
you going to choose a day of the week or a date now?
I would absolutely open it up for discussion on that and see what day of the week works best for people. If you know now, that would be helpful. This week, as much as we can get nailed down as much as possible now, I think would be very helpful. So, thoughts on day of week. So we have the time, we have the 2 venues, but now a day of the week.
Are we looking to meet before this quarter is up, or are we waiting until, let's say, August, which is a hard month for vacations?
Well, this quarter is already up, so would be. Oh no, wait,
You got
with the 3
you
months.
got a little while.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of second quarter. I was thinking 4 months. Yeah, Ron.
Ron Carosella. I think we try to stay away from Mondays and Wednesdays, not to interfere with RTM meetings. It doesn't matter over the summer, but in the future,
Tuesday would work for me.
Tuesday is good for me too.
Tuesday works.
Sounds like Tuesday's the choice.
Okay, so Tuesdays at 7 quarterly at GPD and Town Hall to possibly alternate. And I guess the question about starting in this quarter, then it would be August, all right, before August. No, it'd be at the end of June. So maybe, is everybody okay with that, or do you want to start in the 3rd quarter, which would be July?
Do we anticipate we're going to have any work immediately? Is there anything for us to review?
Nothing's coming to my mind. I don't know if the chief wants to add anything.
Well, at the Chief Evie, at the appropriate time, I'll have some information I'll provide to you. And then I think probably the best thing, because we have some members that aren't here, I'll send it to the group electronically so you can review it. And the chairman may want to change the format that I've presented it in, but I prepared some statistical information based on the requirements that are listed in the responsibilities for the board as part of their committee scope and policy. So, but we can talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
Peter?
We could meet in September. September is obviously part of the 3rd quarter. That you avoid the August vacation. Usually people are back in September.
my suggestion Let's possibly use the June meeting for an orientation as to the police department, how you're structured. It doesn't have to be a long meeting, but we'd be at the department, so it can be convenient for your staff. I haven't been in the Citizens Police Academy in, I think, 9 or 10 years, so it's been a while for me.
Good work on your man.
What day in June?
Angelica Arenas, and yes, I think June would be best because that way at least it gives us an opportunity to all meet in person and actually meet at the police department before we take that long kind of over the summer break.
I agree.
Okay, so
What date in June? We got the 7th, the 14th, the 21st.
Bingo.
Anybody have a suggestion?
Right now, how about the 21st?
first day of summer.
Sounds good.
It's a sign. 7 o'clock.
Perfect.
21st, okay.
And that'll be in the Public Safety Complex, 3rd floor, classroom B. That room will be able to accommodate anybody who might need to Zoom in, but hopefully the majority of you will be there in person. And we'll arrange a tour of the station in advance of the meeting if that works for people. If not, we'll do it afterwards.
Whatever's convenient for you, Chief. That's fine. So we all agree, June 21st, 7 o'clock, at Police Headquarters, 3rd floor. Anything else?
No, I think before one person that's we suggested be the secretary is on her way. So while we're waiting, I think maybe a good opportunity for everybody to just go around and introduce themselves, some people may not have met everyone here. So why don't we start in the front row, and I'm looking at Chuck Zubek.
That would be me, Chuck Sobek.
Thank you.
Angelica Arenas.
Ron Carosella.
Peter Bernstein.
Now we're up to virtual.
Adriana Harper.
Mr. Rabin?
Yeah, I'm John Rabin. I don't know, was I on mute? I apologize if I was.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Joyella.
Wayne Keeney.
Okay.
We got everybody, I think.
Yes, so Laverne Lord is on her way, but I don't know if she'll make it in time. And then the other person is Sandy Kornfeld, but I don't know who Sandy is. We'll certainly send them a notice of the information. But I don't know if there are any other, is there any other questions?
So not new business, but I just want to Janet Stone McWigan. I serve on the Board of Selectmen. And this isn't new business, but I just wanted to remind the committee that we had brought up that we wanted to offer members training in unconscious bias. There is training that the town is going to be offering. It's coming up. I'm very happy to take that training and consider whether it might be appropriate for the committee. If not, we had talked about maybe partnering with other organizations in town that offer such training so that the committee members can avail it themselves if they want to.
Sure. I know some have already done that, but certainly, yeah, we can, maybe that's something we can discuss at their first meeting in June. But I remember that conversation. So yeah, and there are plenty of organizations in town, some that have reached out to us, and I know the Chiefs has plenty that he's worked with too. So yeah, maybe you could put that on the calendar for a discussion item on June 21st. Any other comments or questions? Chuck?
Could we get a list of numbers?
Yeah.
I didn't get that. I didn't hear what he said.
Chuck Zobek asked if we can get a list of members and their contact information circulated, which we will get out by email. And I think we have all that information. What else? Any other? I know Selectwoman Lauren Rabin has joined us. She's on Zoom there. Hello, Lauren.
Sorry, I'm mute. Hello.
Hello.
And I could send the contact information. I have it all. I can, should I send that to somebody specific
I think the
or all
yeah.
of you? I can send it to all of you. Mhm.
You have that, this way everybody would have everybody's email address.
That would be better.
Yep, I could do that right now.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that.
And I'm also a Raven, but with an I, not an E.
Oh, yes, we could see that, or at least I can see that anyway. But thank you for that, Lauren. I appreciate it. Any other comments or questions? Well, again, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I appreciate you stepping up, and everybody on this committee. It's the first, so certainly you'll be remembered, the first one here in the town. And again, thanking our police chief for really being a partner with this. So I'd like to turn it over to Chief Evia for a few words.
Good evening. Again, I want to thank everybody for volunteering to be part of this committee. And it'll be, it's momentous occasion, easy to remember because it's my wedding anniversary. So we're 26th one, matter of fact. So I thank everybody for being here. And I again, looking at the Board of Selectmen Citizens Police Advisory Committee guidelines, some of the areas that we want you to be able to review, I'll present to you whenever we have our meetings. Because there's so many that are remote tonight, what I'll do is I will send a copy of the document that I'm going to refer to. And this is just a summary of activity, and I'll send this to the chair and to all the members so you guys can review it. And if you think that there are other items that you'd like to see or to discuss, we can modify this, but I'll make sure that on a quarterly basis, this report will be available. What I'll do for tonight, since we're kind of an organizational thing, I think it might be appropriate just to go over a couple of the numbers. One of the things that I'd like to mention is that your police department is an accredited agency. We are one of 39 out of 163 agencies in the state of Connecticut that have state accreditation. We've had that for almost 2 years now, but it was a 2-year process to get. We feel that this was a good way for us to vet from an outside review of our department for policies and best practices, and we're pretty proud of that. Lieutenant Tim Kelly, who's the training lieutenant, he's our accreditation officer, and he's currently working on our renewal of our tier 1 accreditation, and now we're working on our tier 2 accreditation. Tier 2 involves a review of our property and evidence and some of our administrative duties. And then tier 3 is some more things about our command structure. So we'll keep you advised about how we're inviting this organization, the Police Officers Standards and Training Council, to come in and review us on a regular basis so that we can, again, demonstrate that we're doing things the right way. And then also that an outside agency is giving us approval of the way we do things. A couple of statistics, just kind of see where the police department is. Up to date, we have nearly 10,000 calls. We've had 13 burglaries. We've had 32 DWIs since January 1st. And one of the numbers that I'm still working on, and again, I hope that anyone here within the sound of my voice could help me with this. Last year, we had 130 cars stolen. 130 cars stolen out of the town of Greenwich, and all 130 were unlocked, and all 130 were either had the key or the fob in them. Some cars, and I won't tell you that particular part of town, Riverside, had cars stolen twice.
Technically, they were borrowed.
Right, and we recover most of them, but it endangers the it endangers the public. It invites a negative criminal element into town because they get emboldened knowing that we're an easy target for auto theft, that then maybe they start trying the doorknobs of the houses instead of just the doorknobs of the cars. So we encourage everyone to lock their cars and to use all of the community resources that we have, whether it's our community impact section who will do a security survey of your home, whether you use our dark house service, which is calling in or filling out a form online to let us know that you're going to be away. And then, of course, being a good partner in that and making sure you have lights on timers, that you don't leave your house totally dark for a week while you're away, that you don't have the newspaper person leave the newspapers in a form of rob me at the end of the driveway because you have a stack of papers there, and you take care of the mail. And there's lots of little things you can do to make it yourself a hard target. So to date, as of this morning, we have 50 cars stolen. So we're on track to be just as bad as we were last year. But we've partnered with other agencies. We've recovered most of the cars, but there is a challenge with juveniles from other parts of Connecticut, mostly New Haven, Waterbury, Bridgeport, and Hartford, that are taking the cars. They take the cars sometimes as gang initiation, sometimes just as a convenient set of wheels that makes them anonymous so they can commit other crimes. Then again, they endanger the public with their involvement with the stolen cars, and we do recover them, most often damaged. So it would be something that great if we could move on that number. One of the things under the police accountability bill is that we are now required to have body cameras, and the officers wear body cameras when they're on patrol. Look, you should have been here earlier, Miss Ford. They were volunteering you for things because you were late. So no, you have to sit up here in front of one of those microphones. So I'd like to introduce the committee's new secretary.
I don't know why. I don't know why the chief volunteered you, but it's.
Oh, wow.
He kept saying the absent are always guilty. So.
Oh, jeez. I'm not pressuring you into that. Everyone who wasn't here was volunteered for possible service in that. But the body cameras, just for the month of March, we have 3,538 recordings, and this is everything from accidents, arrests, motor vehicle stops, criminal investigations, and it is a new part of what policing is in the town of Greenwich. It really is catching the officers generally doing everything right. There is an expense to it. The cameras themselves, and I should have brought mine in from the car, and I'll show you at the next meeting. They cost about $800 a piece, but the big cost to the department and to the town is the storage. We have to store anything that relates to a criminal matter for a long period of time. If it's a routine interaction with the public, we save those for 90 days. But over the course of the next 5 years, the body camera program will cost us $1 million. Another requirement of the police accountability bill is a dash cam, and we currently will be fielding those in the next few weeks. 20 of our 60 cars. Now we have we're working at the marked patrol cars first, but we'll have 20 cars equipped with the dash cam. Some of the dash cam advantages will include the fact that there'll be a license plate reader, so we'll be able to be notified if a car that's stolen or unregistered, whatnot, drives past the officer. These cameras will also be able to be activated so that a supervisor, either at headquarters or a dispatcher, can actually observe a crime scene or an event in progress and use that camera for intelligence to add to the incident, the resources we need to make sure that it's safe and that we can, return back to normal. So it's a little bit of a growing pain, but we're certainly getting used to it. I've been a police officer here in town full-time for almost 36 years, and it's a big difference in what we used to do. It has changed our practices, but not really our behavior. The officers are still doing what I think is most of the time a very good job. So more on the dash cams when we meet again. For the month of March, we had 13 use of force. And use of force requirements, reporting requirements is another part of the police accountability bill. Sometimes people don't quite understand that the police use of force is sometimes our mere presence. I can look at either one of my kids when they were little. My mere presence in the their activity would probably get them to stop something, even if I wasn't a policeman. But, you know, a lot of these 13 incidents were placing of hands on an individual to assist them. Now, sometimes that's might be related to a person who's in emotional crisis, but we still document whenever we use force as part of our practice. In that month of March, I said 12 of these were soft hand techniques, and only 2 involved controlled takedowns, where we had to move somebody physically to either effect an arrest or to immobilize them to prevent them from hurting themselves or other people. And this is a state requirement. It's now digital. It has to be reported electronically. And we just had a couple of our sergeants up at the police academy to learn more about that, the system that the state is changing for each town to have to submit that. We had 5 civilian complaints so far this year. Of that, only 2 of the 5 were sustained. The other 3 were unfounded. All were for minor infractions. And again, like I said, 3 of the 5 were found unfounded. 2 required the officers. One was what they call a PIN, which is a performance improvement plan. It's kind of a counseling to improve the officer's performance. The other one did require some discipline. We've had 15 internal affairs investigations. Those are, and again, at the next meeting, I'll go over it more, but they have level 1 and level 2. So they're sometimes a minor offense, a violation of policy at a lower level that often requires the officer to be retrained in an area or develop a performance improvement plan. Then occasionally we do have violations that result in discipline, a loss of a vacation day, suspension. It could be that a person can, up to and including termination, although that rarely happens. But we do keep track of that. And coming over here this afternoon, I wanted to add another page to this, because more than civilian complaints, more than internal affairs investigations, a higher number that we have is our number of compliments from the residents. These are people who take the time either to write a note or a letter, or sometimes just an email, and I make sure I document those as well. A lot of times people will go out of their way to just acknowledge the officer, and they might not even know who they are, but they'll say that the officer helped me at this time and place, and we kind of figure it out. One of the new things about the police accountability bill is that police officers have to wear name tags. We had to get a little bit of adjustment to that, but in some places, that's been a long-standing practice that officers are required to wear a name tag. All the officers from sergeants and patrolmen have an actual badge number, but this is an additional way to identify the officer. So it's a little bit different than we've done in the past. So some of it new to us, but we're getting used to it. Some of the senior guys don't like the fact that it has serving since in their year. So sometimes you might just see the name tag because they've taken that part off because they don't want to know that. They want you to know that they've been here maybe too long. And then I guess the last area before I could open it up to questions is just a little bit about our another requirement that we give to the state on a regular basis is our racial profiling. And about just looking at the statistics from the thing, this is motor vehicle stops so far this year, 82% of those stopped were white or Caucasian. 2.7 were Black or identified as African American. 7.5% was identified as Asian. And again, about 5% were 2 or more races. About 12% were Hispanic or Latino. So it just gives you a little bit of a numbers idea on our motor vehicle stops. We are a very transient motor vehicle population. So besides the 62,000 people in residence here in Greenwich, we have probably 25,000 people who come and go, whether they work here or they come to school here. And then we have the Merritt Parkway, the Thruway, I-95, and 684. So because we are right in the middle of the tri-state area, some of our motoring public doesn't really reflect what our population is. So sometimes that factor has to be considered in that number as well. But like I said, I just went over a quick overview. One other item I'd mention is that we recently, the Lions Club, which is an organization that's nearly 100 years old, a fraternal organization that does community work, recently recognized the department in for the last 3 years, they hadn't had their luncheon, which picks the officer of the year. Now, the chief gets the recommendation. It's not an easy thing to pick the one person who might do really good work, but it's kind of reflective of some of the really good work that the Greenwich Police Department does. And I'm not just a member, I'm also a resident. I really do think that we have a superior department. But in 2019, 2 of our detectives were recognized for a long investigation that resulted in the apprehension of an individual responsible for a rape in Greenwich and a rape in Stanford. And these 2 detectives went literally all the way across the country to Kansas City, Kansas, to make an arrest, an apprehension of the suspect wanted for these 2 rapes. An individual, one of the victims had gotten into what they thought was a rideshare program, and it ended up being this assailant. So lots of really good old-fashioned detective work. For 2020, they recognized the entire police department for our response to COVID. Pretty much probably everybody knows that we have a little bit different first responder mode than other places in the state and actually in the country. Most of our officers are emergency medical technicians. This really makes them a better police officer because they have medical training, helps them be a better investigator. And of course, we have 11 police cars on the road at any given time, and they can get to things pretty quick. This is in conjunction with our 16 civilian dispatchers who take the calls and can do triage on what resources need to get there. And they also can do what they call EMD, emergency medical dispatch. They can give you a CPR refresher over the phone while you're waiting for the police officer to get there. In addition to that, GEMS is on the way, and people often refer to GEMS as emergency room on wheels, but the paramedics advanced life support system that we have here in town, you're really second to none as well. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, Chuck. It's a great place. If you have a heart attack, and talk about statistics, if you have a heart attack outside of a hospital setting in the United States, you have approximately 10% chance of survival. In the town of Greenwich, it fluctuates between 38 and 52%. And that's because of the dispatchers and their EMD. It's because the police officers are trained, because of the great work of GEMS. So I don't want anyone to have a heart attack, but if you're going to have one, have it in Greenwich. But it's just a good example of our response. So 2020, the Lions recognized the entire police department for their response to COVID. And, we had to do some really unpleasant things, sometimes things that the First Selectman told us to do. And of course, we took the brunt of it, per se, when we had to close Greenwich Point, or we had to make people walk in counterclockwise on the trails, or we had to make sure people maintained distance and wore masks. And but one of the positives about it was, as the chief and as a member, as a town resident, I really got to see that we had always been prepared. We weren't in a hustle for trying to find masks and gloves. We already had good stockpiles of gloves and masks. We had good training on how to prevent ourselves from getting sick or ill from an illness. So because of that EMT training, we were able to respond appropriately. Did we have people get sick? We did. We even lost one of our dispatchers, Franco Toolbeck, in November to COVID. But I think it was good training, good equipment, and also supervision and training. Again, I just mentioned like Ron Carosella, one of your committee members, has been teaching EMT for probably 30 years at the police department. And that training they fell back on, and it really made the townspeople safer and the department safer. And then lastly, for 2021, Detective First Grade Christy Gerard, who is assigned to our cold case squad, she was able to investigate a murder that of an infant child at birth by about 11 days before I went to the police academy. So almost 36 years ago. And she revisited all the investigative notes and the reports and was able to use modern technology, the DNA. And DNA has changed numerous times. It's getting so that we can reevaluate evidence that we thought might not have been of any evidentiary value, but now really can. And she was able to make an arrest of an individual responsible for the death of that infant. So that's just another highlight of those things that your department does. So are we perfect? No, but we work hard at making sure that we do the best we can. And if an officer does not follow exact procedures and policies, that we get them the training and the tools so that that won't be a repeat offense. And I think as you go through your review of us, I think you'll see that. And we certainly would welcome if people approach this committee with concerns they have about the police department. And I guess lastly, I think I'll mention, just to open up to questions, is that there is a process that's, again, under the Police Accountability Bill, that we have to make available a procedure, a policy to make a complaint. And occasionally there are complaints, even complaints against the chief occasionally. But we have a procedure where they can file an anonymous complaint. They can file a complaint at the sergeant's desk. They can come to the First Selectman's office, or even the switchboard here at Town Hall. They can go online, and we will investigate allegations of police misconduct. And sometimes there's that concern where that people will not be willing to go to the police to complain about the police, but we certainly encourage people who may have not been treated properly to seek us out so we can do something. So I guess I'll close with a little story. My mom is a communicant at St. Mary's Church on Greenwich Avenue, and she would park behind Saks occasionally, because it's really fun to find parking on Greenwich Avenue. And another woman attending church backed into my mom, and she called the police because her son said, no matter what happens, minor accident, major accident, your fault, not your fault, always call the police and document the accident. So the officer, as pouring rain, he arrives, he makes sure that the two women are not injured, and he asks them for their license, registration, insurance card. And he said, well, you don't want to get wet, go back in your cars. And she watched him start to write the information on the report in the computer for the first operator. And then he flipped over the license and saw the name on the license. At the time, I was a lieutenant, and of course he jumps out of the car and runs over to my mom and says, "Oh, are you related to Lieutenant Heavey?" And she's like, "Yes." He said, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" And my mom said, and this is a good lesson for my officers, so I tell this story to them sometimes, is, well, you should treat every woman who gets involved in an accident like their lieutenant's mom. So we really do try to make sure that we're taking care of the community like they're our relatives. They're our moms, dads, sisters, brothers, and I think you'll find that as you look at us from an external matter. So with that, unless people have any questions, I'll send this report to the chairman, and if you wanted to look and see if there's anything else or any other format you want to have it be presented in, and then I'll get that to the entire committee. And our plan is that we'll provide that to you maybe the day before your meeting, so that you'll be able to review it before you come in and ask questions and stuff.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so appreciate all that information and that good lesson at the end there. So June 21st at 7 p.m. at the Public Safety Complex, 3rd floor, Classroom B, will be the first meeting. And you will be under the guidance of Chairman Keeney. So look forward to seeing everybody in person then. And any other comments before we sign off?
Hi, this is Angelica Arenas. Just had a question for Chief Heavey. I see there's a lot of outreach for recruiting to fill, vacancies at the police department. And I know that right now with the culture across the nation, it's kind of hard to attract people into this career of helping people when, they're so under the microscope. How is the department handling that?
So it's certainly a challenge. Right now, we're down 11 officers. We have 3 in the New Britain Academy. We have 3 officers who we I don't want to use the word stole. We had them navigate over to a better police department, 2 from NYPD and 1 from Arlington, Texas. And they're currently in a comparative academy. They don't have to go to the full academy, but they'll be going on the road pretty soon. So it really takes us from the time the person takes a test to when they can actually work as a police officer individually. So 7 months in the police academy, 12 weeks of field training, and then some other training. So it's almost a year. it is a challenge with, we've had some retirements and some separations. So we're doing a couple of things. One is we're going to colleges that are, have criminal justice majors and trying to recruit them, but we don't need just criminal justice majors. We need people who have, compassion and a desire to serve the community. This last exam, we currently have about 22 names left on the list. So we're vetting them right now. We can't be in a rush to do it because we don't want to miss something and have somebody who's not appropriate. We also wait for seats in the academy. So we've partnered with New Britain. We've in the past done Milford and Bridgeport Academy. We also do POST, which is the Police Officer Training and Standards Council, and in Meriden, which is where the state police go and where the majority of police officers go. We also are working really hard to have our first selectman and the mayor of Stanford get a regional academy going in Stanford. And if we do that, we'll be able to hire a number of officers to get up to strength. But even if we were to hire all of those 11 today, it would take us about 9, 10, almost a year really to get them to full strength. We are Captain Zuccarello, who I'll have you speak to you guys at some point. He's just went to a training program for how to better recruit. I'm hiring officers. I've hired over 70 officers, half the department since I became chief, but most of them were born after I became a police officer. So I don't have the same rapport with them. So it's changing the mindset. But we still do have people who are committed to community service and they want to help people. One of the requirements we have in our department is 60 college credits. About 60% of our officers have bachelor's degrees, 15% have advanced degrees. But that's one of those things where we're not going to change the standard to hire quicker because we feel that those higher educated officers are less vulnerable to have lawsuits and liability against the town. So we think it's a good thing. Many of the officers, they do their 2 years college or military and come on the department and then finish their degrees a number of ways. Just by going to the academy, you get 15 credits college. So it is one of those things where we're trying to think outside the box and think of different ways to attract the non-traditional police recruit. So we'll probably be sharing that information with all of you and the rest of the community so that people will be able to be recruited. So, but it is a challenge.
Well, thank you, Chief. Much appreciated. So Chairman Keeney, I'll give you the last word before we leave.
No, I appreciate everybody. I'm anxious to meet everybody in person. I'm sure we'll do a good job. It'll be interesting work, that's for sure. And if I could get a motion to adjourn, we can conclude.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. I'll see you, everybody, on the 21st of June.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.